So what should we expect from our regulators? Well, Kevin Nixon, a senior advisor at Deloitte and a co-leader at Deloitte Centre for Regulatory Strategy, joins us now live at the desk. Kevin, thank you so much. So what do you think will be the biggest single change that comes out of this report?
So it's going to be a very large report. We know that. There's going to be a lot of detail. And I think when you look at all the hearings and all the information that's been passed to us over the last 12 months, the biggest thing has been not that there was new laws or gaps in regulation, but the adherence to, the observance of and the enforcement of the law. So I think the way that both internal expectations on consequence management for executives and expectations on regulators on enforcing the law, I think that'll be the big headline.
Yeah, now certainly in the draft report, the Commissioner made it very clear that he didn't think that there should be more regulation, that maybe that it should be tougher though instead. I mean, will he spell out penalties, you think, or will he say, for instance, that bonuses related to financial metrics won't be able to be used as much?
So I think there will be part of that. I think that the report will have a lot of recommendations for the government to enforce. So some of them will be high level and some of them will be fairly detailed. I think certainly about bonuses, but also about commissions. There was quite a lot of commentary during the hearings around commissions and the conflict of interest potential that comes from commissions. So I think commissions and then bonuses for executives will be a big part of this.
Now, of course, there's so much digital transformation going on at the moment in the financial services area. I'm just wondering whether you think that we're almost making recommendations, for a system that is kind of rapidly crumbling, and indeed we should be thinking more broadly about how digital technology will change this.
Now, this is something I feel very strongly about, and I think that, I'm not sure that crumbling is the right word, but certainly it's about to transform rapidly. If you think about the financial sector, it's been fairly static for the last 2 or 3 decades. Since the 80s, in Australia and around the rest of the world, we've had big banks that have done the majority of financial services. And I think that right now we are at a period of time where the world is changing rapidly. There will be new entrants, new ways of doing business, just as we've seen in every other industry. Perhaps the music industry and the movie industry was one of the first to be transformed. But the regulation and our thinking, you just look at the hearings and the commentary around the Royal Commission assumes that we have these big banks and assumes that all financial services are done through these big banks. And I think that the whole framework is based on that. And again, I wouldn't use the word crumbling, but the whole system is about to be shaken up.
I just want to introduce my guest host for the hour now, Gareth Head, Senior Economist at the CBA. Gareth,
sure.
Any particular thoughts on how financial regulation will be changing?
Oh, look, as someone who works at a bank, that's sort of a little bit hard to comment. I was actually interested just on views around the timing of this. I mean, we've got an election this year. Look at the polls, there's a good chance that we get a change in government in May, assuming an election's in May. Do you think the response to a Labor government to the Royal Commission would be materially different from that of the coalitions? And if so, how, basically?
So I think that the report is due February the 1st.
Yep.
And what time that gets released publicly is still up for debate. Obviously, the government will need time to digest it before they release it, but I think there'll be a lot of pressure for them to release it quickly. I don't think, given what we've seen in the hearings, no matter what political party you're from, it's going to be very hard not to adopt the recommendations from the final report, if not in full, almost in full. And I think that will happen whether it's a Liberal or a Labor government. And I think that you'll probably see with the election looming, the government will be very quick to adopt the recommendations. As to the actual implementation, I think you will see probably some difference in between a Labor government and a coalition government in terms of how the timing and the ferocity, if you like, in which implement those recommendations.
Yeah, I sort of asked that in the context of, it was only, I think, a couple of months ago, we had the Treasurer basically coming out and saying, look, it's really important that banks don't turn the tap off to credit, and we don't want to see, the supply of credit come down too much, which kind of seemed a counter, if you like, to what was actually going on in the Royal Commission in terms of them looking at the importance of tighter lending standards. So, that's where I guess I've sort of come at it from the point, well, maybe the government's response in terms of just how it would implement any recommendations might be a little bit, for want of a better word, softer than what the Labor Party might do.
Yeah, I think probably more cautious might be the right word, but it will be a view that's taken in the context of an already slowing housing market. Would there be an economic impact from that? But I've got to say, having watched those hearings and looked at everything that's gone on in the Royal Commission, it'd be hard to not implement what is necessary for the system and the trust in the system. And I think, as has long been argued since the GFC in many regulatory forums, are you better with a stronger trusted system delivering long-term benefits for consumers or more short-term gain? And I think we're looking for that safer, trusted system.
Just in terms of the open banking regime that I think we now have, or if we don't, it's about to start very soon. Have we seen any changes or new competitors yet as a result of that change legislation? I mean, the government, of course, has been saying for years now that it would really shake things up. Has it?
So, well, I think it's going to have two impacts. Firstly, it's going to have an impact among the incumbents, because you can now go and get your data. And so it's going to be much easier for you to shift your accounts from one of the major banks to another one of the major banks. Even that's been difficult in the past. Then you have the opportunity for new entrants. I think that once the open banking regime is implemented and the data is moving through the system, you will see new entrants come in. I think you will see them waiting, they're waiting in the wings, and they will come in because the ability to tap into the current sentiment and, if you like, attack that the sort of the stickiness of bank accounts will be a very attractive opportunity for new entrants, but I think it's also an attractive opportunity for the major that gets it right, because they will also be able to attract business from the others. As I said, we've had a very static system. We've had Big Four with roughly equal market share. Open banking could shave at that.
But if you had to peer into the future 10, 15 years, I mean, we could be facing a very different landscape in the financial services.
Oh, absolutely.
Area.
Absolutely.
Maybe not with 4 pillars, but maybe one huge pillar and 3 small ones.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin Dixon, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks very much, Adam.